guest today is the founder and CEO of Organised 365. She's also the host of a top-rated podcast also called Organised 365 and the author of the book Escaping Quicksand. Love that title. She helps people reduce overwhelm, create practical home and paper systems, and move from reactive living to a more organised and purposeful life. I think we can all do with a bit of that. Her work has reached millions through her podcast, books, courses, and speaking. Today, we're going to talk about modern overwhelm, invisible labour, self-care, and what it really takes to reclaim your time and energy. It's with great pleasure that we welcome all the way from Ohio, USA, Lisa Woodruff. Welcome to the show.
John, thank you for having me. I hope we have a long time if we're going to cover all of that.
Well, I'm in my favourite place, and I know you are, because you are we're going to talk about making a real difference to people. And that's why I think our audience today is absolutely going to love this interview. This interview is going to be the first of season 3. So it's a great way to kick off the next season for Rise and Thrive Conversations for Greatness. Now, I must say, in all the communications that we've had before the interview, there's this little sparkle of happiness across all the communications. And I wonder if that's because you are organised, you walk the talk, and you are reaping the benefits. I do want to start with, what pushed you from a stay-at-home mum to becoming an entrepreneur?
Well, I'm glad that you see a sparkle of happiness, because what pushed me from being a stay-at-home mom into being an entrepreneur was a very dark, depressed time in my life. I loved being a stay-at-home mom. I loved everything right up until my 40th birthday. You know, I was a babysitter. I loved babysitting. Got married. I was a school teacher. We adopted our children for about a decade. I was a stay-at-home mom. Loved it, loved it, loved it, loved it, loved it. And then, you know, in my mid-30s, like some unpleasant adulting things started happening. Like my parents got divorced. Who said they were allowed to do that? And then my dad fell ill and ultimately passed away. And my sister and I found ourselves as power of healthcare, power of attorney, and ultimately selling our family home and the executor of his estate. My kids had a lot of medical and needs. In 2008, 2009, we had the global recession. And I just was like, you know, I thought adulting was when I got to do what I wanted to do. I thought I was in charge now. Like, this is my house. You can't tell me what to do. I get to make all the rules, right? And it just felt really heavy going into my 40s. I just felt like nothing was going my way. It didn't matter what I did. I was sinking deeper and deeper into quicksand. I needed to make more money. And I come from a long line of female college graduates who all started their own businesses and were entrepreneurs. I knew that calling was on my life, but I'd kind of been pushing it away and doing direct sales and doing all these other things. And in 2011, I had 9 Schedule Cs on my tax return. So in the United States, if you make more than $600 from any other entity, they have to file a 1099, and you put that on your tax return. So literally, if you ever heard, you know, Pretty Woman, like, who do you want me to be? Like, what do you want my name to be? That's basically what I was saying to the IRS. Like, I'll do anything for money. Like, who do you want me to be? I clean houses. I teach. I tutor. I was in 5 different direct sales companies, and I was making money in all of them. But I wasn't in control of anything. Like, I wasn't in control of my time. I wasn't building a brand. I was just like trading my time for dollars for whoever would give me money, which sounds really bad when I say it that way. And so
but a lot of us do find ourselves in that boat because we are searching, and so we'll try and we'll try. So, you know, excellent for trying, but I know then it became something bigger. Yeah.
Yeah. So there I was. And I think, you know, a lot of us, I think, are kind of in that boat right now. You know, the economy is so uncertain right now. Prices for everything I know in Australia and everywhere through the roof. We don't even really know what the summer is going to bring us. And so it is a risk to be an entrepreneur. Like, the buck stops with you, but also the buck stops with you. So you get to choose all of the 24 hours a day you're going to work instead of only working 8 hours for someone else. And I was just at that point. I was like, you know what? I want to build something for me. I'd been in many direct sales companies. One that I was in at that time, I was giving the leadership a lot of counsel because I've made money in a lot of these companies, and they like weren't listening to me. And I was like, I've been doing this for decades. I know what I'm talking about, but I was a stay-at-home mom. So they were, you know, dismissed me. Now they're out of business and I have a multi-million-dollar company. So I'm glad I bet on myself, but it's really hard to make that pivot. But at 40, you're just like, you just go for it, you know?
Yeah, because it is a bit of a risk, even if it is a calculated risk. Anytime anyone goes into business, that's what you're dealing with. And I guess the idea is to minimize those risks. So did you start like at your home, or you had an epiphany like, I've got to get more organized, and then you got more organized, and then you're like, oh, I could help others do this? What was the spark? Well, I know there was a lot of uncertainty and upheaval, and you had a need to create more revenue, but was there something else there that when that light bulb went off, I can show other people how to do this?
I had no clue what I was doing. I had absolutely no clue what I was doing. I just knew that I work really, really hard and that I will figure out how to make enough money for our family. And I will say, my story is similar to everyone else's, and in a way it's different. I was always just a little bit older than everyone else around me, and always just a little bit more uncool than everyone around me. So in Cincinnati, Ohio, there were a whole bunch of bloggers that had really good SEO blogs, and like they were the foundation of TV shows that took off, and they had advertising from the Fortune 50 companies that are here in Cincinnati. I didn't get any of that. I never got advertising dollars. I never got a brand deal. I never, nothing. I've never gone viral for anything ever in 14 years in business. But I have a teacher background. Most people don't have a teacher background in entrepreneurial, in entrepreneuring. And so I applied a lot of what I knew as a teacher for students to what I was doing in the classroom. And I have a really big direct sales background, as I told you. And so I'm used to being in people's homes. Like I have been in hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of homes. And so sometimes I could see things that other people don't see. And now today I have a company that's very unique. Like everything we're going to talk about on the podcast, you've never talked about before, because I've created the curriculum from scratch. So it's very fun and exciting, but it was a slow burn, like a really slow growth. So the first thing I did, I knew about SEO. I named the company Organized 365. I figured that could be a good SEO keyword. I like talking about organization. I'm organized. Yep. No idea how I'd make money. No idea. 3 months in, someone told me I was an in-home professional organizer. So the next month I was like booked solid because I knew how to sell my services, and I had been organizing in people's homes. I didn't know that was a profession. Once I did that, then that was like my classroom. So for 5 years, I was in-home organizing one-on-one with people, grew a team, started a podcast, and really started to see like, okay, there are some universal truths across all households. There are some different phases of life people go through. There are differences for different families that commune together. We have no systems in households. And that really became my classroom that I started talking about and creating products and services for.
Gotcha. I must say, Rise and Thrivers, when you go to Lisa's website, organised365.com, you've got this great video that just really explains it all. And I really, really enjoyed watching that. And your website has a lot of great resources on there.
Thank you.
I know that we've touched on it a little bit, but I know that people feel overwhelmed with life. I think that's all through history, right? But it feels like a bit heavier these days. Yeah. And I know people that really say to me, I thrive in the chaos. I love the chaos, and there's crap everywhere and all the rest of it. And it's like, I don't know how you can thrive in that. So I'm really interested in your perspective. So there's obviously people that will come to you and go, I want to be organized. I can see there's a gap there. I can see that my life would be better and I might save some time, and I just really need some help. And then there'll be other people, and they may not be your avatar or your kind of clients, but I'm really interested in your take when people say, I love the chaos. I thrive in the chaos, because I just can't get it.
Well, I think entrepreneurs and creatives in general do thrive in a little bit of chaos. Like if we've got a checklist and it's too administrative and too repetitive, we're like, I'm out. So I definitely relate to that. However, we only like the chaos that we cause. So we thrive in the chaos of our own messes and the piles that we know what's in all of the messes. But if you come moving our piles, or you like inject your chaos into us, we're like, hey, we don't need that chaos. So we do need a little bit of mess in order to see synergies, I think, especially for entrepreneurs and creatives. That's like an aside. Yeah. Also, I think what's going on right now in the world, with the wars and economies and politics and, too much on Twitter, is that the world has always got stuff going on. Yeah. And we have no control over it. That's what's frustrating. We have no control over it, but it really impacts us. It impacts us financially, and it impacts us in a lot of ways. And when I start to spin out, because I can, I can spin out on what's going on in the world and politics.
Sure.
And I get all worked up and I become cranky, which isn't good in my house, by the way. When I go to bed and I wake up the next morning, I'm like, Lisa, just don't look at Twitter. Like, just don't look at it. Don't listen to those podcasts. Don't turn on the news channel. Listen to an audiobook. Just go work on your dissertation. Just take your grandchild to the park. When we focus on ourselves and our professional development and our households and what we can do in our households, we will never regret the time and the money that's invested. So if you're feeling really like the world is going to hell in a handbasket, that's great. Then go organize your underwear drawer. You will feel better. Like, do something that will be long lasting for you. Listen to an audiobook, binge this podcast, and really invest in yourself and invest in your home. You will never regret those time and money investments.
I love what you're talking about there, Lisa. We often talk about on the show and in my keynotes about controlling the controllables. And because we get such a heavy cognitive load when we when we focus on things that we can't control, and to be a bit logical about it, if you can't control it and you're not going to do anything about it apart from worry, then it's just free rent in your head that you just don't need.
Yeah.
The other thing I liked about what you said earlier, which I just want to go back and touch on, is that you took action without the clarity, so to speak, without knowing where it might go, but you knew to take that action. And I love that concept about how action brings clarity. So what I heard in your answer before is you weren't sure about where it might go, but you knew that if I take a step forward, more will be revealed and I'll understand more of what I need to do or what's working, and I can stop doing what might not be working. And I really wanted to hit that point in our interview that you took action and that created the clarity as well.
Yeah. And I would say to your audience, especially if you're an entrepreneur or you feel like, and I felt like this so many times, like, what I'm talking about, nobody else is talking about. There's not really a roadmap for what I'm doing. And what I found since I've been in business for 14 years is a lot of people around me who had success, maybe getting advertisements on their blogs. Well, blogs aren't really viable anymore. Or they were able to create a really good funnel where you downloaded this thing and they went into this course. Well, those companies have gone away. And because I didn't have that success that others around me did, that I didn't follow the path everyone else followed, my company is still around. It's really strong because I have courses in physical products and an online community and a certification and a podcast and like all the things that were so complex as I was doing them. And I was like, why am I building such a complex engine? Why am I, going after things that are not monetizable right now? But now I have this solid infrastructure and this unique intellectual property that I would have not created had I gotten some of those easy, more lucrative deals or what appeared to be passive income. Nothing I did was passive ever, but now the passive income era is over and I'm still here. If you're wondering like, and if you're going to build something that truly has never been, like I just think of Elon Musk, like everything he does, like I can't still even comprehend what he's actually done, let alone have thought to have done any of the things that he has done. You have to be so in the future in your mind to bring those things forth into reality that you're not going to be able to turn around and see other people that are like you. And in no way am I comparing myself to Elon Musk, by the way, if anybody is taking that, like in no way. But often I feel like, there's so many, we look at see other people's quick success and why aren't we getting that? But if you keep going, if you are consistent, you will be successful.
Yeah, consistency. My friend who's a personal trainer says the same thing, and I see it play out in life, in people's lives, in my life. The consistency, taking that action regularly makes all the difference. It's a bit like when I started learning the guitar, I went to my teacher and I said, I haven't practiced all week, but I practiced an hour before I came here. He said, John, you're better picking up the guitar 5 minutes every day than 1 hour once a week. And that really stuck with me because consistency, there's so much power in consistency. Now, we mentioned about invisible load in the introduction. So I really would love you to explain a little bit more about the invisible load that you talk about.
So this is a big buzzword in mainstream media, huge area of research in academia for decades now, this invisible load, the mother load, the work that primarily women are doing in households that is not visible, the scheduling, the planning, the prioritizing, the ensuring that everything gets done, the making sure that everything's ready for the holidays, like all of that invisible work. And it is measurable, and it is definitely a load for the female head of household. It definitely has stress and emotional ramifications. And I want to just kind of change our lens on it a little bit. I'm an applied psychologist, so I want to find solutions. As a teacher, I want to, okay, here's the problem. What's the solution? How do I teach you the solution so we can get to the problem? And right now, academia and the marketplace is saying the solution is that men should do more. So John, pick up your weight. Could you please do more?
Hey, mate, I do heaps around it. In fact, what you're talking about is what I do in the house.
Okay,
so yeah. So this applies.
But also going back to our earlier point, like you can't make other people do things for you. And there is invisible work everywhere. So inside of businesses, CEOs are doing strategic invisible work. Inside of governments, there's invisible work everywhere. So yes, it is a load. And yes, we don't want to put it on one gender or one person in the household, but who can you change? You can only change yourself. So instead of saying that this is an invisible load and it should be equally shared, I see it more as the CEO role of the household. So the household is an economic entity and it needs leadership. And there's a lot of work to be done that is visible and invisible. And so I take on the mantle of being the CEO and making sure that I know all of the invisible work that needs to be done in the household, just like I do inside of my business.
Great. Wonderful.
And way to go for stepping up, John.
Yeah, thanks. Well, I was going to say I blame my mother, but I don't mean that. I mean, I thank my mother.
Good on her.
She instilled a lot of those things in me. So it's definitely not I don't know if it's even traditional anymore. I know heaps of my network where the guys are doing all the cooking in the household and things like that. So those traditional roles, I guess, I don't know if you call them traditional, but those old school roles are definitely changing and moving, especially my circles anyway. I'm sure it's not all over the world, but in my circles, definitely. And I do love what you offer because in some of the things I've seen, they're simple, so you know that they work. And I love how you offer paper-based things as well, stuff that's really tangible, that you can feel and that you can hold and that you can use and that you can write, because I know in the brain there's this different things that fire when you're actually writing instead of when you're typing. And it's great to be digital sometimes, and you can have things on your phone and walk around with them, stuff like that. I don't know if it's an age thing, but there's something magical about paper. So I was really intrigued when I saw that you have some paper-based systems that you offer.
Now, here's a great example of being old, number one, and kind of being ahead of the curve. So my book before this one was called The Paper Solution. And I went to New York in 2018 to sell that book. And I met with a couple of editors and a couple of book agents. And they all said, we do not need a book on paper because the world is paperless and no one's going to have any paper. I was like, okay. So I went back to Cincinnati and I wrote the book, The Paper Solution, because I know as an in-home professional organizer, there's a lot of paper. And if you don't think your parents and grandparents have paper, I have news for you. They do. They have lots of paper. As a matter of fact, they might not even have a computer. So when you want to find what their online password is, they haven't even set up the online account. So there's a lot of paper. So I went back a year later to the same book agent and the same book editor. And they were like, oh my gosh, there's so much paper. We desperately need a book about paper. So here's an example. Just like whatever you feel on your heart that you're supposed to be pursuing, I'm just going to say, pursue it. You just may be ahead of the market. So when I came back, had the book, they were like, yes, we definitely need this book on paper. So we are a paper-based society. There's so much science that backs up what you're saying, John. As you write things down by hand, what you're doing is you're encoding that thought, that memory, that task deeper out of your working memory into your deeper memory. And you are more likely to complete that task, even if you never look at that paper again that you wrote it on. Yeah. And now analog is having this resurgence because we're realizing we gave all these kids computers at school, and now they're not learning as much because they're not doing that kinesthetic writing down with their hand. There's research that shows even if you write with a stylus on a tablet, it is not the same as writing with a pen on paper. There is a difference to writing as a pen on paper. But even more than that, you may want to have digital systems. I have digital systems for myself. I don't live in the dark ages or anything, but paper is so easily translated for communication. You can hand a paper to a spouse or to a doctor or to a lawyer. But digitally, you're like, I'll email you that later, which means you've lost the opportunity because it's not in the moment. Or you'll say something to a colleague and they will say, well, they want substantiation of that thing. If you can hand them a piece of paper that says the same exact thing, all of a sudden they take you seriously, even though it's the same exact thing you just told them. But if you can hand it to them on paper, they take it more seriously. And the last thing I'll say about digital, because we're not going to get away from being a digital society, but digital organization is individualized. It's very rarely shared in a family. You may have a shared Google Calendar, but you probably also have a private one as well. You may have some shared files, but not all of them. And then when you make the updates, do you actually share them? You probably don't. So individuals can organize in digital, but organizing in analog is very easy for a whole family to have access to the same information.
Yeah, I love it. And I heard a great expression years ago, and they said, don't just think it, ink it. And you might have heard that one in your travels too. I really love that. So almost what was old is new again, or I guess we're combining the two, the digital and the analog, to get the best out of both worlds. Love that. Now let's talk about Escaping Quicksand. So that's your new book, and with the subtitle 10 Steps to Overcome the Overwhelm of Modern Life. Now, I'm not going to ask you to give us those 10 steps, because you've got to get the book, right? And that's on pre-order at the moment. It's out in a couple of months, but it's great to have 10 steps to be able to action. Can you tell us more about those steps without giving too much away, because we want to get the book?
Yeah, I don't mind giving too much away. I believe knowledge is power, and I just don't worry about stuff like that. These are the 10 steps. I'm in my 50s now. These are the 10 steps looking backwards on that decade. I was starting to grow the company, and the kids were launching from home, and we were starting to write our finances and all that. I was moving from reactive, negative, depressed, and really a witch to be around, to the positive, proactive person I am today. I made a lot of outward signs, like started a company, got the house organized, those kinds of things. But those things were successful and stuck because I also made some mental mindset shifts. And what I've noticed in my clients, that as they get organized and they have more freedom of time and capacity, then they have to wrestle with what they're uniquely gifted and created to do, which is the ultimate message of Organized 365. We don't want you to be organizing for the rest of your life. We want you to get your time back so you can do what you're uniquely gifted and created to do. Well, now that I'm on the other side of that, my kids are launched, I'm enjoying my grandchildren, I'm getting my PhD, and I have plenty of time. I'm like, wow, I didn't realize in my 30s that there would actually be a time in my life where I would have this kind of time and capacity. And so often, women especially, I don't know about men, but women especially are always asking other women, how do you do it? Like, how do you get it all done? Or how are you so productive? Like, we're obsessed with how are you productive? Like, how can we possibly squeeze more into this day?
Yeah.
And a lot of times the tips and the tricks that we give you work, but they only work as long as you can effortfully implement them. This book is much more of the mindset shifts that are now the person who I am today. I'm just a positive, proactive person. And I was a negative person. How do you become positive? So one of the steps is I realized that I wasn't a perfectionist. I'm a woman of excellence. And this was huge for me because growing up dyslexic, I did not get all A's. I didn't even get all A's and B's. I had this floating C on my report card that drove my mother crazy because every semester it would be in a different class. It was in science, then it was in history, then it was like, it just kept moving around. She's like, how do we get this to all A's and B's? And I just was not capable of being an all A, B student. However, I love learning. So whenever I would get my grades back, I would go up to the teacher and I would ask them to explain everything I didn't know. And so I've retained a lot of knowledge from school, possibly more than others have because I love learning, but I didn't have the grades to show from it. As I became an adult and I was desperate to be a stay-at-home mom and we adopted our wonderful babies and I had my dream life, I tried again to be perfect. Like I wanted to have the kids dressed properly. And, when my husband came home, jazz music playing on the hot cooked dinner, like I was a 1950s wife or something. And I just could never hit the mark. I could never hit the mark. And eventually I was like, you know what? Well, I'm just not good enough. Other people are capable, but I'm not. So, I'm just going to mail it in. I'm just going to mail it in. I'm just going to stop, trying because obviously I can't be perfect, but obviously everyone else can. I saw it as a personal character flaw. Everybody else was successful. I just wasn't. But then in my 40s, I realized, you know what? Everybody else is a hot mess too. And so this idea that everybody else is perfect isn't a real thing. It's not just me. And I didn't really like the energy of like, oh, well, I guess I'm just not good enough. Like I didn't like thinking that way about myself. And so I was thinking about the word perfection. What could I replace it with? And I replaced it with excellence. And I recorded a podcast probably 6-7 years ago called I'm a Woman of Excellence. I bring all I can to bear in a situation, financially, emotionally, relationally, intellectually, everything I can. But I know I'm not going to be perfect. And the subtle shift between perfection and excellence is judgment replaced with grace. I was judging myself. I was judging everyone around me. And somewhere in my mid-40s, when I finally broke and realized I could be excellent, but I couldn't be perfect, I started giving myself grace for the first time in my life. And ultimately, I gave grace to everyone else. My husband said to me the other day, he said, you used to judge everyone and you don't judge anyone. I said, yeah, not even myself. He goes, how do you do that? And that's what I'm trying to tell, especially women in this book, Escaping Quicksand. We all feel like we're in the quicksand. Like the book Escaping Quicksand is when I was sliding down into the pit of despair in my 30s and landed at the bottom as I was turning 40, I realized there is no rock at rock bottom. We are like sinking further into quicksand. And for many of us, we feel like we're just going to go under and get swallowed up whole. Like we literally feel that way. And when I was looking around for women to help me and, pull me out of the quicksand, I realized I could just see all of my friends were also in their own little piles of quicksand. And then we can't pull each other out. We have to grow our own muscles to pull ourselves out. And I am pathetically weak. Like I work out now, but not until like a year ago. I tricked myself into learning Pilates. Until a year ago, like, I don't know, if I'm running, you better be running. Something's chasing me. So I didn't have muscles to pull myself out of quicksand. And that's what this book is. What are the things, the simple things, the mindset shifts I made in my 40s that allowed me to become positive and productive, and it stuck?
I love that. So there's the combination of the action in the physical and also the mental side and the mindset side, replacing judgment with grace.
Yes.
I love it when you said that. It kind of almost gave me a tingle down my spine. We are judgment machines as human beings. And when you have that awareness to kind of step back and go, is that really working in my life? And you made the decision that wasn't working in your life. So what advice could you give people that might not even be aware that they're judging themselves and others, and whether they realize it or not, it's not working?
This just came to mind as you were talking, so I'm going to share it because,
Sure.
For the entrepreneurs who are listening, I heard somewhere, and I don't remember where, that when you are like watching a competitor on Instagram, let's say, or their YouTube channel, and you're like, they must have a bigger staff, or they must have this, and you're just starting to judge them and feel bad about yourself. I think that, at least for me, that's usually bringing up either I know there's something I'm supposed to be doing in my business in order to have that same result that I'm just resisting doing, either because I don't feel capable yet, or I don't feel like I'm missing something in order to do that. And so what I've started doing instead, first of all, don't follow people if you're going to be judging. Just remove all of that from your life. But also when I see other people, competitors or colleagues that are having more success than I am or succeeding in an area that I am working towards, I now look at that and I go, good for her. That is great. Because if she can do it, I can do it. And that is a total different feeling. And when you think about really successful people that how many of them are like, yeah, but I'm not as good as so-and-so. They are not judgmental, and they're not comparing, and they're not looking and going, well, sorry about it, but you aren't as good as I am yet. Hope you get up here someday. I mean, they're not like that. They're nice and generous and positive. And so if you want to be successful, you need to be nice and generous and positive and encouraging other people and championing them and celebrating their successes. And then you too will have that success. So this idea that your energy begets other energy, I think is really important. And especially as we were talking about earlier, this is uncertain times. It's really easy when the world seems to be falling apart around you to then be like, this is mine and I'm gonna hold on to it really tight and you can't have it. And I'm one of those, like, there's plenty to go around. There's plenty of everything to go around. It may not seem like it right now, but there is.